With the announcement of its first budget in May, the Abbott government placed major economic reform at the centre of its policy agenda, promising to create jobs by taking the shackles of red tape and taxation off business. Massive cuts to public spending were floated, and sweeping reforms to welfare introduced to see job seekers and other welfare recipients earning or learning. With General Motors set to wind up local manufacturing by 2017, the people of Adelaide's north, already some of the most vulnerable to poverty in Australia, are at a turning point, and decisions at all levels of government will help decide how this community transitions from Motor City to whatever lies beyond. To mark Anti-Poverty Week in 2014, the Don Dunstan Foundation spoke to 3 people working to address poverty in Adelaide's north. Sharyn Lovell from the Salvation Army in Playford has been a salvo all her life.
So the Salvation Army in Playford primarily is a church, and attached to the church we have what we call a community support services. We have the huge range of people coming for our services. In Playford in particular, we can have people who are living right on the edge, so they don't have enough money to get food on the table tonight. And we've got people who have just lost their jobs, double income, have been living quite successfully, and because of that have a lot of debt that they were managing quite well while they were employed. But if one of you loses your job, or you get injured, sick, for whatever reason you don't have the same income, suddenly you're in strife.
Mrs. Lovell said the nature of poverty in the region was changing too.
So what we're noticing at the moment is that there are a lot more people coming who are needing financial counselling. So the assistance that they're looking for isn't the immediate material assistance. They're coping quite well with that, but they're going under financially. So the mortgage is just getting worse and worse because every fortnight or every month when they need to pay it, they can't afford to pay it, or they're falling short. Or they're using their credit cards to try and bail themselves out of debt, and in the process they're getting into massive credit card debt. So we're seeing certainly a turnaround in those kinds of clients. What we have noticed is that even though we've had probably about a 17% increase on the number of people coming to our services in the last 12 months compared to the previous 12 months, we've only had an increase of about 6% of people who are on Centrelink payments. So we're seeing more people who are not, Centrelink is not their primary income. There's definitely a growing class of working poor. People who, they work and they're just not making ends meet.
While Mrs. Lovell is optimistic about the community's future after Holden, she said people do need to be aware of the stresses local people will face in the coming years as the economy reshapes itself.
From our perspective, what we're concerned about is the morale of the community. So people who perhaps have been working for Holdens, or some of the companies that are supporting Holdens, who will find themselves out of work, and particularly the guys that work there are taking it tough. So they may not feel that they will get a job, they may not feel that their skills will transfer somewhere else. They probably feel that they are the primary earner in their family, and therefore if they can't bring the income in, they're letting their family down. In many cases that may be the case because the wife may be a stay-at-home parent who doesn't have her own job that she can just go to and suddenly become the income earner in the family. So there's a lot of guys who are taking that personally hard. We're concerned about things like family breakdown, and we're concerned about increase in suicide rates for just the people that just work is their life, and the prospect of there being another job out there. So it's not that they don't want to go to another job, but there's not a lot of jobs out there. So will they get another job? That's something that does concern us. I think that unfortunately there's the perception that there's a lot of jobs out there, but the reality is that there's not. And so people tend to withdraw. And if you start to withdraw, then that's where community falls apart. Because if you're not, feeling like you're worthy, then you're not going to participate in anything in your community. As a family, you'll withdraw because you can't afford to participate in things that are happening in your community. Or you certainly don't feel that you can participate at the full rate that everyone else is perceived to be doing. So there's a lot of concerns about the perception of participation. So, you might think that everyone else is doing fantastic and you're the only one who's doing it tough, and therefore you want to hide it. But everyone else is doing it tough and they're hiding it as well. So I think if we can actually get people involved in community activities and just have that sense of belonging, you feel supported. And so you feel that, okay, yes, I'm doing it tough, but others are doing it just as tough and we'll pull through. And as a community, we'll pull through.
Paz Forgione is the coordinator of the Anti-Poverty Network of SA, as well as a group called Stop Income Management in Playford, which opposes the Basics Card trial introduced under the previous Labor government. Some 600 people in the region are part of the trial, which Mr. Forgione says does little to empower welfare recipients.
There's a number of myths about our welfare state that I think help the kinds of heavy-handed and punitive policies that we've seen over the last few years escape the attention and scrutiny that they deserve. The biggest one that I mentioned earlier is the fact that most payments are grossly inadequate. But people don't realise that. In fact, often you only realise how low New Start is when you lose your job for the first time. You go onto the payment and you're shocked to find out that it's only $255 a week or $38 a day, and you were I'm expecting it to be twice that much. People who could find work would. Why would anyone choose them to live on such a low income? Why would anyone choose to live on $12,000 a year if jobs were available? It beggars belief that people would want to rort a system that gives them so little. And there's this idea as well that our welfare system is unconditional, that it gives people something for nothing, and they're basically a free ride. And again, that's simply untrue. The obligations on job seekers and on other categories of centrelink clients is significant. They're required to search for 10 jobs a fortnight. They're required to undertake study or training. There are regular appointments. People on welfare do not have an easy ride. They there are significant expectations, and the idea that it's simply some kind of holiday, from having to be employed like everyone else is simply flies in the face of the everyday experiences that people on welfare have. And Stop Income Management in Playford has been operating for just over 2 years, which is almost as long as income management has been operating in Playford. And we're a diverse group. We're made up of local residents and people from right across Adelaide, in fact, right across South Australia. A number of community workers, people who work in the welfare sector, and increasingly we've been working with people who are put on income management. The situation in Playford is that there are roughly 600 people on income management, and about 100 of those people are volunteers. The rest, the other 500 or so, are people who've been forced on. We've met a number of these people, and what we know is that the vast majority of them are perfectly adept at managing their money. They don't have very much money to manage. They're on very low incomes, but most of the time they look after their finances extremely well, and they have to. When you're on a very low income, you have to manage your money well, because if you make mistakes, it's very easy to start drowning. It's very easy to start falling behind. And so often the people on low incomes are the best money managers, because they have to be. So what we found is that many of the people put on income management are perfectly competent and responsible, and I'm doing everything right. They're often working part-time or studying part-time. They're put on income management simply because they're a young person and they're on a particular kind of Centrelink payment, and because of that, it's automatically assumed that they can't manage their funds by themselves. And we know from the evidence that income management doesn't work. For the people who do need help, it's a fake solution, because it doesn't address the real problems. It doesn't build up people's skills and strengths. In fact, there's some evidence that those people who do mismanage their funds, which is a very tiny number of people, they could actually become dependent on income management and on Centrelink to look after their money, which means that they're becoming more vulnerable rather than less vulnerable. So our goal is to see this policy completely scrapped. And we believe that it's not only an ineffective policy and a policy that causes significant humiliation to the people who are forced on, but also a very expensive one. For each person on income management, roughly $5,000 is spent per year on managing their payment, and we believe that money would be better spent on support services that actually positively turn around people's lives, on the programs that work, and that's financial counselling, money management, anti-addiction programs, and in the case of a Playford, addressing the massive undersupply of jobs. You have a situation where the unemployment rate is at 12%, and youth unemployment in Playford is 20%, and in parts of Elizabeth and the surrounding suburbs, it's closer to 40%. In a situation like that, income management is basically a band-aid solution, and in many cases actually has the potential to make things worse rather than better.
22-year-old Davern Park resident Kirstyn Jones has recently completed the compulsory income management trial, and while she doesn't oppose a voluntary basics card scheme, she says a lack of financial autonomy has serious impacts on compulsory basics card holders.
Income management for me, originally my first thought was, why in the hell am I getting put on this? I've been able to support myself for 17 years. Well, without it, I've been obviously with my family. After that, I had another 4 years of by myself, with other people, with family members, managing my own funds. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, someone comes in and goes, right, you can't do it anymore. So all of a sudden, it's that lack of trust. It's that you're unable to pay it, and you're in the same group as everyone else who might be a gambler or a drug dealer, anyone like that.
The 22-year-old has 2 part-time jobs, one in the city and the other in Mount Barker. And with no car, the demands on her time are heavy. Despite this, she is also studying an accredited course at her local community radio station, but as her income is supplemented by New Start allowance, has recently been required to begin a work for the dole program, adding further strain on her modest resources. A common problem, according to Sharyn Lovell.
I think the negative approach never works. So having a community that is struggling to find work didn't happen overnight, so the fix is not going to happen overnight. Having that negative connotation that you aren't looking for work as opposed to people struggling to find work, it just, again, it's just another, big stick approach to someone who's feeling down already, because if you do want to get a job and you can't find a job, and suddenly you have to justify how many jobs you've applied for, that's not going to help anyone's self-esteem. It's not going to help anyone as far as them feeling well enough and confident enough to go and sell themselves at a job interview. So the negative approach never works. I can understand why people think that it's necessary, but I don't think that's the way to go. No.
Our payments have to be raised. It's as simple as that. It's it's unacceptable that in a country as wealthy as Australia, we have unemployed people surviving on $255 a week on a payment that has not been lifted in real terms for 20 years. And when you consider the fact that there aren't enough jobs to go around, people often spend long periods of time on a New Start struggling. It's not a short-term payment. So it needs to be raised so that people can properly search for work, and so that people can have a decent and respectable quality of life while out of work. And that applies to other Centrelink payments as well. Like student payments are too low as well. I mean, it's unacceptable that you have a situation where students are on about $210 a week, and they often have greater expenses than unemployed people, because they have educational expenses and textbooks and so on. And we think people have to recognise that there aren't enough jobs to go around, and that we should stop blaming unemployed people for things which are probably the fault of the labour market. And we need to have a serious discussion about how to create more jobs, like instead of looking at policies like work for the dole, which punish people and don't make it any easier at the end of the day for people to find jobs.
While all three agreed that governments have a key role to play in ensuring the long-term survival and prosperity of the North, Mrs. Lovell also encouraged local people to seek out opportunities to engage in and grow their own communities. This, she said, was a key to maintaining a vibrant place to live and work through the tougher times that lie ahead, and ensuring the local community was in the best position possible to capitalise on the good opportunities that will arise.
I think Playford and its community is certainly at a crossroad, and it has a fantastic opportunity to actually turn itself into a positive at the moment. So there's a lot of negative press about what's happening in the Playford area when you're talking about Holden's closing, and then the flow-on effect that will have. You have the income management trials, and you have the highest rate of single parents, and all of that kind of negative press. Yet there are lots of positives that are happening in the community, and we just need to take advantage of what's happening and get the information out there and have people re-engaging with the positives that are happening. We're seeing a lot of community activity, so a lot of programs that are funded by the council and that are funded by other community groups. Kids play things that are happening, community gardens, cooking classes, just lots of fun activities in the parks and things like that. Lots of, new parks that are being built specifically so that people have got somewhere to go for their children to play in a community area. We have, fantastic developments like that are happening, and people just need to, open their eyes and realise that Playford is not such a bad place to live. It is a great place to actually, to live and to work and to be part of, and look at the positives of things and re-engage with some of these positives. Become a member of your community and don't just sit at home and, think there's nothing to do.